My name is Nishnianidze, and I'm the former head of communications at Zagoriy Foundation. It's a Ukrainian private foundation, and I'm also EP fellow. I've been helping non-profit organizations create effective communications for almost 6 years. For 4 years, I was responsible for all communications activities of our foundation, like digital marketing, public relations, creation of an information campaign, and also communication support for all our projects. And now I advise organizations on communications and help non-profit organizations become more effective through the power of communication. A little bit about structure of our webinar. We will cover 6 general topics. We will talk about benefits of communications for fundraising. We will talk about communication channels and their role for fundraising. And also we will talk more about practice things, for example, how to create a successful message for your audience, how to reach your audience, how to create an effective fundraising event or campaign, for example, in the social media. And also the last block, but not least, will be about measuring and analyzing fundraising communication. Let's start. If we look at the pyramid of needs of organizations, the base will be dedicated to the survival of the organization. One of the main elements of survival is the financial stability of the organization. Financial stability, with very rare exceptions, depends on effective fundraising. And effective fundraising impossible without many things, without strategic vision, without team, without partnerships, and also without communications. My point is very, very simple. For fundraising organizations, fundraising is a condition for their existence, and the condition for effective fundraising is communications. And if you are an organization that relies on donations, crowdfunding, grants, and so on, every communication action should have impact on increasing the effectiveness of fundraising. There are a lot of benefits of communications for fundraising, but I underlined 4 big benefits of communications for fundraising. And I always draw an analogy with business. A business will not invest a single dollar of hryvnia in communications if it does not have a direct or indirect impact on the bottom line. I think that it would be great if non-profit organizations also follow the example of commercial sector and weigh their investments in communications from this point of view. When I say investments, I don't mean just money. Investments are also about the time, about the resources, about your team. And now a little bit, not a little bit, but about benefits of communications for fundraising. First one is knowledge about your organization. In fact, it's very difficult and very important to build the audience knowledge about yourself. And this is relevant point not only, of course, not only for non-profits, but for everyone who depends on the audience in one or another way. The more people know about you, the more often you are mentioned when they want to make a donation, and it's just like rule. The second one benefit, it's like trust in the organization. Our foundation, where I worked for 4 years, made researches about charitable giving in Ukraine, and our research about charity in Ukraine has shown that trust is the most important factor in making a decision to support an organization. Of course, a decisive factor may vary from country to country, but I'm sure that trust in an organization is important for donors in all countries. And we trust when we know, and we know those who communicate about themselves, who is visible. The third benefit is recognition of expertise. So experts are invited to events, experts are invited to give some lectures, webinars, consultations, and so on. Experts ask for their comments for the media. Experts are invited on the TV, radio, and so on, and their opinions are monitored. Even in addition to being an expert and having knowledge, you also need to declare and communicate it. Therefore, communication is essential here as well. And last but not least, the benefit is building a community of ambassadors. If you look through different trend reports, for example, I know that Pinterest, Adobe, Photoshop, and a lot of platforms every year makes different trend reports. And community building is one of the most important trends now. United people into community is future of the communications. People want to network and be involved in important stories, but of course, people want to be part of powerful and visible stories. And to be visible, you also need to be loud, you also need communications. So about communication channel. I know that it's a little bit theory, and this theory should be adapted to fundraising. This is the theory that everyone who is involved in communications in one or another way should know in order to understand what communication channels exist, what their specifics are, why they were created, and those use them for their own purposes. In our case, for the purposes of non-profit organization, I see some points, some answers in the chat. So website, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, a lot of channels. The most effective are for now Facebook and Instagram. Yes, I understand. For the most of organizations, Facebook and Instagram work in the best way, but we also talk a little bit about other channels, and maybe I encourage you to develop other communication channels. So of course, there are a lot of communication channels and even more different resources, and I definitely don't know all the resources that exist in the world. But now we will touch on the main segments and be able to analyze most important, most popular communication channel. I also divide channels into like internal and external channels. Internal channels are those that you or your organization owns. That is, you create them, you manage them, you choose the vector of development of these communication channels, and Also, you can stop their work. You can prioritize a particular communication channel and develop it. In general, like it's absolutely you are an owner. And external communication channels, which are those channels where you need the approval of an editor, journalist, partner, blogger, influencer to publish. In other words, you need the approval of a third party to publish information about your organization there. Let's talk little bit more about internal channels. I think that's very important, and like very often this channel is not that one which we focus on, but website is like your face. All information should first of all appear on the website, and I advise you to go to the website after the webinar and take a critical look at it. If you don't have the resources for a full-fledged update or redesign or rebranding, it's okay. Just check the basic information, do some basic, I call it basic cleaning. So like update photos, mission information, add reports, check the team section, see phone number, email address, also write something about yourself, shows that the work is ongoing. This is very important because the website is still often the first point of contact with the audience, and still most often people use Google first to find some links or get information, and Google will show the site first, the website first. And if the site was updated years ago, if it hangs, if there is some contradictory information, this first contact will be the last one. What to do if there is no website? It's not a big deal. I think it's great to have a website, but if you are a small organization and you want just starting out, this is not a big deal. Nowadays, really, Facebook and Instagram and other social media are a great alternative to a website. But this doesn't mean that you should refuse on a website. You just need to work for quality, and if you can afford a website, you should definitely make it, because website is your visibility. And for example, the website is what is usually indicated on business cards. It is sometimes important for donors, especially international donors. It is also a mechanism for fundraising, what is very important, because it's on the website that you can add ways to make donations. On the website, you can develop this donation per subscription. And it's also through the website that you can and should form a databases for email campaigns. Of course, not everyone needs a website at the start, but if you are planning to develop your organization, provide effective assistance, and conduct your activities, website should be included in your work plan. And now we will talk a little bit about my favorite communication channel, and it's email newsletters. To be honest, this is very, very great communication channels for non-profits, because it doesn't require as much involvement as, for example, social media. It's super effective because it delivers a letter to a person who has subscribed to the newsletter or has already contacted you. But of course, there is always that but it is difficult and time-consuming to build this database of email contacts. It's difficult because you need, first of all, a website and a form where people leave emails, and it takes a long time because nowadays not many people want to leave their emails, and if they do, they don't open them later. But the conversation rate of engagement from the right emails is high. We conducted a little, small study of the effectiveness of our communication channels in the foundation I worked, and our email newsletter on the top with our social media. And for example, our Facebook has 47,000 followers. So, and Facebook was equal to email newsletters, and just like a little advice, use email newsletters wisely, and don't bombard your audience with a bunch of emails, and collect your audience's emails, even if you don't plan to send newsletters yet. Of course, get their, it's important because it's very time consuming to form a lot of mailing lists, and I advise you to start right now, and maybe in the future you can use them. Also, emails are gold for future target advertising. It's like new reason to collect emails. Very briefly about social media. Of course, social media are kings and queens of the communications nowadays. Everyone is developing social media, and the competition is fierce, but the effectiveness is also fierce. Yes, social media is certainly must have, and in my opinion, social media is the most effective communication channel for fundraising. About external channels, of course, it's media, online, print, regional, national, television, radio, influencers, bloggers, partner resources, outdoor advertising, and so on, so on. I don't want to talk a lot about external channels. I want to talk about very popular question: what to choose, what communication channels to develop. No expert will give you a specific answer to this question. By the way, it will be very interesting to read your answers. Which communication channels do you prefer, external or internal? Please type your answer in the chat, and I will talk about my position. So only you can get it, of course, empirically. Testing is very important here, but I would definitely recommend investing more in your own communication channels, because these channels are with you in any weather. But for a full cycle of communication, to expand awareness of yourself, to expand your audience, you need to develop relationships also with the media for this full circle of public relation. And even maybe do some outdoor advertising, but still it is best to develop your own communication channel for fundraising activities. Now I can open chat both, but our own is about community, so they are more effective. Yes, I agree, thank you. Of course, you can't just refuse on external channels, but for example, media can see you on your, for example, Facebook or Instagram, and you can also develop external channels. It's easier to develop external channels when you have effective your own channels. That's why I'm a big fan of developing, first of all, your own communications channel. So let's move on. Now we will talk about how to create successful message for your audience. It's very practice, very practice, and the answer to this question should start with defining your audience. So if we don't know who our audience is, the message won't be delivered. Then there is no point in creating all the communication messages. Why is it important to understand who your audience is? It's like basis of the communication. Imagine there is a train called communication that carries various communication messages to recipients, and the target audience is your goal. If you don't know who they are, the message won't be delivered. Then there is no point in creating all the communication messages. Of course, when I talk about defining the target audience, it doesn't mean that you have to have one single target audience. It can be several different segments. For non-profit organization, the most striking example is that one large segment is your beneficiaries, for example, who can also have certain gradation, for example, depending on what your organization does. For example, teenagers and children, and so on. Another big segment is your donors. Those who are already donors, those who may become donors, business partners, etc. And your content distribution strategies will differ depending on who your audience is and what your goals are. If, for example, active philanthropists read you on Facebook, it means that you need to focus on fundraising communications. In newsletters, you can be read by beneficiaries, so you need to adapt them to their needs, and so on. To do all this effectively, you need to know who your target audience is and which communication channels use a specific segment of this audience. I hope that I have convinced you of the importance of defining your target audience. And now we are moving on to the most practical part. Let's talk about the specific steps that need to be taken. I underlined 6 steps. Step 1: choose which social media which platform you will start with. I advise you to start with the most active one, as it's usually the priority. And yes, ideally analyze each individual communication channel. So, for example, we choose Facebook because Facebook for the most organization is the most effective channel. Let's move on to step 2, and step 2, select 20 minimum, better more, 50 of the most active users. The number, of course, depends on your desire for depth of analysis. How do we choose? Choose those people who like who comments and dislike on a regular basis. To do this, look through about 20 posts, and please, we do not include your employees, relatives, and friends in this list, because this group of people are not your target audience. We add all the links to people's pages in a table. If you need, I also share this example with a checklist. Please write about it in the chat if you need it. And after you have added a sufficient number of people, we move on to step 3. We start our research. We answer the questions that we have defined for ourselves in advance. There are questions on the social demographics, like age, gender, place of residence, and also there are more like in-depth questions about hobbies, behavioral patterns, favorite color, and so on, where you will have to be like a researchers and sometimes imagine different aspects. And we write down all these answers. Step 4 is about analyzing and grouping. Find out what your people have in common, but don't like combine the audiences right now. Just match different patterns with specific colors, and after that, look at the patterns again. Look at these. Look through this table, and then only step 5, create segments. This is very important disclaimer. Very often we make this mistake when we create segments. We describe perfect people, but this isn't juice for children. This isn't a commercial. These are real people with their own positive and negative aspects. And if, for example, your people are united by a love of arguing on Facebook, write it that way. If you invent a character and tell us how everything is perfect there, you end up with a Barbie doll. And Barbie doll, as British scientists have determined, would not survive in real life. So your audience portrait should be very realistic. And when we have the segments, describe the character. It's like the last step. Give him or her a name, write down their favorite color, and imagine how they spend their day. Is it morning magic or sleeping until the first work message? This may seem like a little bit childish and funny, but this childish fun will let you know who you are doing it for. And when you write a post, you will not imagine very general target audience, but you will imagine a specific, for example, Anna, and specific person. Knowing these mechanics, you can also research the audience of other social networks, newsletters, or perhaps have phone or conversations with your donors and beneficiaries. This is only one option how to analyze your audience. So the first and the most important component of fundraising communications is having them. I hope you, unfortunately, I can't see your faces, but I really hope you smiled a little and appreciated my job, but it's not really a job. I often see great organizations underfunded because they want to do some fantastically perfect communication activities so badly that they don't do them at all. And now I will sound a little bit trite, but imperfect action beats perfect action every time. This phrase said Harry Truman, and I really like this statement very much because it's so true. So the first point has been dealt with, the existence of communications in general. Next are more applied tips. So first one, how to reach your audience. Be user-friendly. What is it about? So the best post, the best storytelling won't help if the, for example, donate button on the site is almost invisible, or if it gives an error when you click it. High quality communications will not lead to the desired action if there are problems at the stage of performing this action. Make the website clear. Who are you? What are you about? Examples of projects, reports. Place the contact button so that it is visible. Also on the Facebook, Instagram, and so on. Specify the details of helping you on social networks so that is easy and user-friendly to your future or potential donors. Next one. Remind often that you are raising funds. You may think that it's already clear that you do it because you are a non-profit organization. Of course, you need money. Of course, you fundraise money. But what is obvious to you is not obvious to everyone. You are the one who knows everything about your audience, about your organization. It is your bubble. And for the audience, your materials are just one part of the entire flow of information that falls on their heads. Therefore, you should constantly and systematically write about what you are fundraising. Next tip, use different communication channels. More communication channels increase the likelihood that people will find out about you. It's simple math. But there is an important also disclaimer here. Don't chase quantity. Quality is always our priority. So if you have time only for Facebook, let it be just Facebook, but like effective and high quality Facebook. Next tip, it's use different content formats. Photos, videos, graphics, long articles, short notes, reporting, storytelling, beneficiary stories. These are all examples of how you can tell about your activities in different ways. And we will also analyze specific examples a little further. And one of my favorite advice, make reporting part of the content. I really wanted to write this point in capital letters because it's really very important. Now, like general annual report and financial year report are not enough. This is just a hygienic norm. In really effective fundraising communications, reporting should be a part of the content plans. And now I'm not talking about some heavy Excel files and or data sets. I'm talking about constant information. What is the purpose of the your fundraising activities? How much do you fundraise? How is the fundraising progressing? What was spent? How was it spent? This can be presented in an interesting and colorful way. We will also look at some examples. Let's go. Next tip, make stories. I'm sure that I will not be completely original here. People have been telling stories for centuries, passing our own experience and knowledge in this way. We better understand and can imagine the thing that try to use different stories from your beneficiaries, your team, your partners. A small life hack for writing a story: let go of the idea that you want to do it perfect and write it as you would tell it to a friend. Just like let it go. You can use these mechanics of free writing. Just write everything you have now in mind. You can correct everything later, but it is very important to write in human language. Don't write long texts. They are very rarely read. Even if you've prepared a long form, say the most important things in the first 2, 3, 5 sentences. Next tip, don't forget about clear call to action. The best story, the most interesting and catchy story may not lead to the action if you want, may not lead to the action you want if you don't remind the reader about it. Remind them that you need support, encourage them to share the story, encourage them to answer some questions, encourage them to donate, because the obvious things are not, the obvious things for you are not obvious for your audience. Next tip is about personalization. Personalization, like high personalization, is also a big trend now for a lot of sphere, not only for non-profits organization. High-level communication is when people who interact with you feel a personal approach. I understand that the non-profits organization usually don't have the resources to do any like hyper-personalization. But there are 2 activities that you can even and even should do. First one, moderation of all comments and appeals and personalized responses to all public and non-public comments. And second one, regular reporting and thank you mailing on what projects have been implemented. It's very, very important for your fundraising to say thank you, to like give this a little bit personal approach to your audience. Next tip, practice. Writing stories, touching emotions, and feeling the audience are skills. And unfortunately, like lectures, courses, webinars will not help you acquire these skills. Only practice will help. And over time, you will see how much better you get at, and how much more you feel what needs to be done and how to do it. So like over time you can do it easier, and only practice helps with this. Now it's like a little bit about cases. So here is two screenshots. Here is two screenshots of two websites. I don't want to demonstrate you name of these organizations, but I think it's very important to analyze what was done good and what not very good. So two websites, both are very basic in design, without super graphics or anything like that. Only one will work and other will not work. This one will work, and this one, I think, will not work very good. This one, despite its simplicity, will work in favor of fundraising. At the top here, at the top, we see a clear structure, sections, everything is clear. We can read about priority areas, publications, contacts. Just a moment. And the most important fact is that here is the donate button, and it's visible, it's contrasting, and you pay attention to this button. And on the main screen here, we see one sentence, what the organization does. And this is the most important thing. And the help button also duplicated the most important thing for this organization. So you can make donation here, and both buttons are very bright, and they attract your view. And here is the second version of the main page of the site. Nothing is clear what this organization does, what is this organization about, which projects do they do, who are they beneficiaries. So difference is very clear. Here is 4 great examples of social media design. Here is Facebook covers, and here also Facebook covers, and here is Instagram pages. The missions on every screenshot is very clear. Here is helping children overcome cancer. Every Facebook cover is not overloaded with graphic elements. And pay attention also here on this button, on this link. When you click on it, you will be immediately redirected to the donate function on the site. So it's all about fundraising. These are amazing examples of Instagrams. Also, everything is clear. Missions, here also missions, save water and sanitation for all, give, learn, get involved. Website, clear logo. The most important activities of these organizations are posted in the highlights. The feed, Instagram feed, is live. With craft images, with sometimes with graphic elements. So it's very good examples social media pages which work on your fundraising. And here is 2 examples of posts. This is a good one, and this is not a good one. This post is short, but essentially retains a structure. Also, this is a great example of how reporting has become part of the content. This is a report for January in cards, and this is an example of not very successful communication on Facebook. First of all, reposts on Facebook is not good, work not very good. Also, we don't have text here, only 2 words, help for children. Also, hashtags don't work on Facebook either. Therefore, this post is unlikely to carry and real meaning to the audience. So that's why this post is unsuccessful. Small disclaimer, the tips will be general, but each case of every non-profit organization is unique, so you need to look at it individually. Nevertheless, this is base, and it is relevant for any form and content. First advice is, of course, set a goal. And this is the most important thing. Now, not raise funds, but raise, for example, $100 in 2 weeks for medicines for adult cancer patients. We don't have time to dwell on the rules of goal setting, but it's a key step to success. And I recommend smart methodology. Specific goal should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Next step is analyze how long and with what resources you have achieved similar results. When you have a clear and measurable goal, it will be much easier to reach this goal. It's easier for us to complete tasks when they are spelled out and clear. And in this, during this step, you can analyze how many people did you reach to raise a certain amount. What is the average donation check? Which mechanics work more efficiently for you and which are less effective? Then, based on your previous experience, create an action plan. What the action plan can include: fundraising mechanics, who is involved in the team, a communication plan for this activity, necessary partnerships, and so on and so on. My advice about the action plan is as follows: diversify the resources of fundraising. That is, work out the maximum possible number of ways to raise funds. So do not rely on one communication channel. For example, you can make a mix of crowdfunding and social media fundraising, or fundraising on social media and fundraising during an offline event. And only after the preparatory work has been done, that the time for pure communication come. And here is 5 life hacks for successful social media fundraising. I think that the most important for successful social media fundraising is a clear goal for of your fundraising campaign. Your goal in money and your goal for what are this money. Next, my advice, also very important, communicate the start and deadline of the fundraising campaign. The deadlines are the best motivators for your audience. And according to statistics, the fundraising is most active at the beginning, at the very beginning, and at the end. So that's why you should communicate very, very clearly the starting point and the last point of your fundraising activities. Next one, prepare everything for a start and use all the resources you have to communicate at the beginning. It's also very important to prepare everything and to make this like bright start of your fundraising campaign. Communicate constantly using various forms of content. At least 2-3 times a week, use different channels and forms of content to talk about your fundraising campaign. And last, life hack is about post communication, about reporting, gratitude, and success stories. It's very important part of your fundraising campaign, but very often we just skip this part. But this part is a bridge between your organization and the audience trust for the next for your next fundraising campaign. Very briefly about fundraising event. All these tips are also relevant for fundraising events, but an important, I think very important point is that the main fundraising during events, especially offline events, takes place not during event, but before them. It's important to prepare the audience for what they have to do at an offline event. For example, if it's an auction, you should tell them in advance about the lots and collect commitments if you are raising a large amount of money. This preparation part for offline events, for offline fundraising events, is the most important part. So we have this statement on the slide: preparation is a key. And now our last but not least part of our webinar, it's about measuring and analyzing fundraising communication success. Measuring effectiveness, measuring communication success, I can say that is not the most pleasant but extremely important process when during your campaign. And also, this process is very important for your next fundraising activities. As I said before, this measuring and analyzing is your bridge between previous campaign and your future campaign. Measuring the effectiveness of communication is like holding a powerful lantern that helps to illuminate the room and not act with your eyes closed and on intuition. So it's I really like this phrase, and it's very true. Performance measurement gives you an understanding of what was done well and what result it brought. It allows you to adjust your tactics during the campaign, what you should pay attention to in the future, which channels worked and which did not, and why. And if this metaphor resonates with you, then it's time to start measuring the effectiveness of your communications right now, and a little bit about indicators. So effectiveness measurement is divided into like two groups: quantitative indicators and qualitative indicators. Quantitative is something that can be measured in numbers, and qualitative, it's meaningful indicators that are achieved through the implementation of the campaign. Formally, we can also distinguish between the four most common indicators: outputs, outtakes, outcomes, impact. I'm sure that you know these indicators. Outputs, like this can be, for example, reach of posts. This can be also a number of donors involved, number of influencers, coverage and views of posted materials in the media, average size of the donation, average number of donors, the number of people who attended the event. This list is not exhaustive. You are free to expand it. And also, it's important that outputs are defined individually for each communication channel and for each campaign. Output can be very unique for every organization and for every fundraising campaign. Outtakes. Outtakes are what the audience remembered from the communication, what they liked and what caught them. For example, it can be feedback after an event, comments under posts on social media, something like that. Outtakes help to evaluate qualitative indicators, whether the audience has internalized our key message or understood the call to action. Next indicator, outcomes. It's actually the most time-consuming indicator, as it should show the impact of communication on the target audience. Also, it can show change in the perception of your organization in the public field, change in the tone of voice of comments about your organization. Also, it can show us level of trust of your organization. Outcomes can be measured by conducting an expert survey or reputation audit. And this story requires investments, and I think outcomes, it's very difficult to measure by yourself, so like only with in-house team. As I said, these stories requires investments, and maybe like some agencies who can make these analytics for you. And lastly, impact. Impact is the results at the organization or society level that have been achieved through brand and fundraising communication. Achievement of targets, for example, achieving fundraising goals or expanding the community, or something like that. Yes. And a little bit about 4 common mistakes in in measuring the effectiveness of your communications. So first one is forming measuring indicators during the campaign, or even worse, after it. It's very popular mistake, yes. All of your quantitative goals, including the desired amount of funds, or number of donors, or something like, or other indicators and qualitative goals, should be set before the campaign begins. Of course, you can adjust your goals and tactics during the campaign, but before you start, the team should have KPIs for each communication channel that you plan to use during campaign. And it's very important. Next mistake is convenient data interpretation. Also a very common mistake. Let's be clear that, for example, publish 10 press releases in different media about your fundraising campaigns does not equal effective communication. Because, for example, only 20 people can read this news, and that's all. This would be effective communication if your goal was to reach 10,000 people with the news, or the amount of money that was supposed to come in sense to this publication, or the amount of traffic that was supposed to be generated by the news to your website, or your goal was to be published in the top 10 business publications in Ukraine with a monthly traffic of more than, for example, 1 million users. So it's extremely important to indicate desired result from a particular manifestation in communications. Third very common mistake is the desire to cover as many goals as possible in one campaign when planning the first campaigns. So, for example, to change public opinion, raise funds, increase the number of benefactors, and increase brand awareness, and increase the level of trust, and so on. Theoretically, it is possible, but in practice, it may require too big budget for promotion, and a short-term campaign is out of the question. And my experience said me that goals will begin to overlap in the same communication channels, and as a result, none of the goals will be achieved. And the last, a very common mistake during measuring the effectiveness is lack of internal efficiency analysis. So what is it about? Let's imagine that the campaign is over, you freeze the required amount for the project, everyone is happy, your team is happy, and the very next day you switch to the next project, and in fact, risk making the same mistakes you made during the previous campaign. Of course, it's not like not mandatory, but because you didn't give yourself time to reflect on the completed campaign, to calculate data, to make some conclusions, to make this reflection process and prepare report with lessons learned, you can make the same mistakes in your next fundraising campaigns. Let's agree that a fundraising or communication campaign is considered complete only when you have analyzed the effectiveness of your communications. And the last part of our webinar is about tools to measure your effectiveness. By the way, it will be for me very interesting to read which tools do you use during your measurement of your communication activities. It's like my advices. Let's divide them into those that are available right now, and some of them you will need in the future. We have tools for quantitative indicators. First of all, my advice, use the business pages of your organization's social media. So business page Facebook, business page Instagram, business page LinkedIn, and so on. Then install Google Analytics on your website. And don't forget to make UTM tags. These UTM tags show the path of a person on the site from clicking on the link to the final action, whatever it is, exit or subscribe. So you can see which post story worked best and gave the desired result. Connect to the free media monitoring bot in Telegram to count media outlets in Ukraine. This media monitoring bot, I know that it works in Ukraine, maybe in other countries also, but very great tools, and also they have like free version of free version of this media monitoring bot. For other countries, just Google media monitoring tool. Then have access to the payment system to see all receipts. I think it's very common advice. And if you are raising money on a third-party crowdfunding platform, request regular updates on your receipts. It's very important to analyze all these different platforms and different channels. And for qualitative indicators, use Google Form to register participants, or for a feedback form. For example, we made our research of our target audience through Google Forms. We asked them like open questions, and it was very insightful for us. Also, for qualitative measurement, you can use polls, surveys of audience, and you can use Excel spreadsheet to analyze and categorize that data. Over time, you will definitely need deeper data, and to the already available tools, you will need to add a CRM system, Google Search Console. By the way, all this Google Analytics and Google Search Console are pretty easy to switch on, and you don't need to be a software engineer to use it. Also, for example, use Scan Media Monitoring for a deeper study of the informational space. Also, you can, for example, make PR audit and image research, communication audit, social audit, for reputation audit. There are a lot of different services on the market, but I advise you to focus on the available tools and to use them right now. And here is this QR code, is the article for those who want to engage in marketing analytics at the pro level. There are a lot of tools. Yeah, it was the last slide. Thank you so much for attending. I will now grab a little water. This is my LinkedIn. I also have Facebook. This is my name and pretty difficult surname. Please contact me. Now I will open chat